Hi there. Come on in. I'm Fred Trost, and I tell you, you think we've had fast-moving Michigan outdoors shows before? Oh, we're going to do cooking. We're going to talk about acid rain. We're going to talk about fly tying. We're going to talk about deer. That's just a few of the things, along with this big fish here that Art Jankowski caught. You're going to hear all about it in just a minute, because it's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. Well, Detroiter Art Jankowski, you caught a trophy fish that some people looking at the picture here might not think is a huge trophy, but it's a white bass, 2 pounds, 3 ounces. Where did you catch that?
In the Clinton River.
Through the ice?
Through the ice, fishing for perch, and I just happened to catch him.
Well, that's not really a normal occurrence, catching white bass through the ice.
Very, very rare in that place right there.
How's perch fishing been for you this season?
Very spotty. More bluegills than perch. Get a lot of bluegills this winter.
Well, I tell you, you've done very well. You caught a Master Angler walleye, which we got your application in the Master Angler program, so we called you up and found out that you even got a bigger one than that 8-pounder. How big is this?
This is 11 pounds, 8 ounces.
The reason we didn't hear about this is you caught it in the waters that are closer to the other country there across the river.
Yeah, Thames River in Ontario.
Oh, I tell you, they have some good walleye fishing in that river.
Yeah.
When did you catch it?
I caught it at the beginning of March, about the 2nd of March, 2nd, 3rd of March.
This year?
This year, yes.
Now, we're talking 3 weeks, and you're on the show here with a mounted fish.
This is what you call quick service by Phil's Taxidermy, Phil's Bait.
Where is he located?
Tilbury, Ontario.
Well, I tell you, get a fish mounted fast there. Great job, too. This walleye is a terrific fish. You say 11 and a half pounds.
11 and a half pounds.
And look at the mouth on this, the teeth, which is kind of interesting. You compare it with the lure you caught it on, which is, what do you call this lure?
That's a Nils Master.
Nils Master. And look at the hooks on it. We have a hook on the nose, a hook on the tail, and treble hook on the bottom. And how do you bait this?
You put 1 minnow on each hook and hook them through the eyes and jig the lure.
Now, you don't put a hook on the head and the tail? Or
no, not on the top. Just the 3 belly hooks. 1 minnow on each hook.
And jig this?
And jig the rod.
Right off the bottom?
Off the rod.
Wow, that's a terrific fish that hit this one. This jig, as this jig moves, it goes around in a circle.
And a circle. And the quicker you jig it, the bigger circle it swims in, and the minnows flare out from the sides.
Now, what's this dropper?
That's for a red-headed jig, for an additional fishing lure you can hook on there.
You ever catch them on a top jig?
Definitely. Sometimes they'll bite that and they won't bite anything else.
Wow. Well, this, and of course, your ice fishing rod is an interesting one. It looks like an ultralight outfit. It's quite a limber rod.
Yes, it's the same as steelhead rod. You don't want them to be able to brace themselves against anything when you pull them in. It doesn't pull the hook out of their mouth.
So you use the limber rod and you like a bait casting reel?
Yeah, because of the drag feature on it. They can pull against the drag and they can't break the line.
Oh, I see. Well, you do a lot of fishing?
Oh, about 4 or 5 days a week now.
Oh, how do you do that? What are you, a professional ice fisherman?
Professional unemployed electrician, yes, for Chrysler.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I hope they call you back to work. That's going to mess up your trophy fishing, though.
Definitely. But there's always next year. Maybe it'll happen again.
Okay, well, 11 and a half pound walleye, and I know you've got some big ones in the river, too, in the Detroit River in the summer.
Definitely. Well, 13 and a half pounds was my biggest in the Detroit River.
That's terrific. Art, thanks a lot for coming down and sharing that with us.
Thank you very much.
And now, speaking of sharing things, we're asking boaters to share their boats with a lot of Special Olympics kids on July 31st. And Ed, we talked about that last week. We've got any mail on that?
Yeah, we sure do. Want to let everybody know, though, that we still need boats, we still need restaurants, and we still need volunteers, just like Clarence Canopy from Wyandotte. He says, I am writing this to volunteer my boat on July 31st for the Special Kids. It is a 19-foot Mariner equipped with ship-to-shore and depth finder. I would enjoy taking them out for the day or any other time. Hopefully the Steelheaders will need me for the day.
You bet they will, Clarence. And we also have a letter here from an East Lansing attorney who wants to help. He says, I've fished for steelhead, but not caught, and have no boat at this time, but feel this program is worthy of support, and I'm interested in serving as a chaperone or whatever, would therefore appreciate whatever information you can provide. Well, John, you and anyone else who contacts us regarding this Special Olympics Day will get some information directly from the Steelheaders and from Michigan United Conservation Clubs, and there's a lot of people who will help hook you up with this, so keep writing in. That we have 27,000 Special Olympians here, and we'd sure like to take as many as we can fishing.
Well, I hope a lot of sportsmen get on the bandwagon for this, Fred. This one letter is from Glenn Bartow. He's from Plymouth. He says, I am a high school senior, and I was hoping you could send me some information about acid rain, particularly in Michigan. I am doing a story about it in our high school newspaper.
Well, Glenn, we're going to send you some information. Thank you very much, Ed. We're going to send you some information on that. And you might want to take some notes right now, because we have staff ecologist from Michigan United Conservation Clubs here, Wayne Schmidt. Wayne,
Hi, Fred.
You always bring such good news on environmental issues, and the one we'd like you to explain today is these bumper stickers you may have seen. Save sport fishing, stop acid rain. What does this mean, save sport fishing?
Well, it means bad news for sportsmen and for anglers in particular. It's a problem that hasn't really affected Michigan that much, but many of the lakes in Canada that our fishermen like to go up and fish are being destroyed by acid rain, as well as in eastern United States.
Okay, now acid rain is something that a lot of people have heard about, but the public opinion polls show that not too many people actually know what it is.
Right.
In a nutshell, could you summarize it?
Briefly, it's pollution from the burning of coal that comes out of power plants. You see this smoke coming out of these tall smokestacks. It goes hundreds of miles, and while that smoke, that sulfur dioxide is in the atmosphere, combines with water in the atmosphere and comes down in an acidic form like sulfuric acid. And it enters the lakes, and then it's like dumping acid into your aquarium at home. It's going to kill those fish.
And actually, photographers love acid rain lakes because they're so beautiful.
Right. I mean, it's an illusion, though, because these crystal clear lakes are really sterile. They really have no life at all, either fish food or the fish themselves.
Now, at this time, we're not talking about lakes like this in Michigan, but I know in Canada, they've documented some 140 lakes that are sterile, have no life in them, and they are high in acid, in the
That's right.
sulfuric acid.
Tens of thousands others threatened, and there's, in this country, a couple of hundred lakes in the Adirondack Mountains that have been destroyed. These are the areas that don't have a lot of buffering capacity in the soils, and they're very vulnerable to acid rain.
Up around Sweden, the Scandinavian
Yes.
countries,
Some of
northeast.
the world's greatest Atlantic salmon rivers in Norway have already been destroyed. In Nova Scotia, many rivers have also been lost. These are the areas shown that are extremely vulnerable to acid rain, including our western Upper Peninsula, because it's a hard rock area. The soils don't have limestone, so they can't buffer that acid rain when it falls on the ground.
Yeah, anybody who has fished up in Canada knows the big rock formations in the lakes that don't have the limestone and the mineral type content that we have in Michigan. That's why our lower peninsula is sort of exempt from the problem?
Well, exempt for now, at least in terms of how it's going to affect our lakes, yes. Most of the real serious pollution comes from the Ohio River Valley. That's where the real dirty power plants are, down in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, and so on. We contribute to the problem. We have some power plants that are still need to be cleaned up more, but aren't the real major cause of the problem in this state.
And you can see on that map right there, the lakes throughout Canada. There are tens of thousands of lakes, and Canada is very concerned about this.
Right, those weather systems just drift that pollution right up into the Canadian provinces.
And the power plants say that there's no problem, no documented problem with human health, but of course fishermen, we are concerned about.
Yeah, it's not just fishermen. You know, scientists are in general agreement that this is a serious problem and it has to be addressed now. And it's being debated by Congress right now. We've got some unlikely bedfellows with the President Reagan and Representative John Dingell from Michigan, which are really the two people most responsible for not getting some acid rain controls in the reauthorization of the Clean Air Act right now.
Well, we have a brochure that we will send you if you write to us here at Michigan Outdoors. We'll give you the address at the end of the show that explains a little more about acid rain and what you can do to help, who you can write to, because this is an air pollution problem that is developed into a water pollution problem, which is developed into a fishing problem and forestry and all sorts of things. What is that phrase that you ecologists use about?
Well, it's just proof of the old adage, Fred, that there's no such thing as a way to throw things away, too. What you throw up in the air through those smokestacks comes down somewhere else on somebody else's backyard.
But maybe there's something that we can do about it.
There
We
is.
hope there's a solution. Thank
you,
you, Wayne. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about another sort of touchy problem right now with Joe Vogt. How you doing, Joe?
Glad to see you.
You're the wildlife biologist for the DNR who works a lot with the deer. People right now wonder, it's thawed down here in southern Michigan, except for maybe today, the snow, sort of bad news. But up north, if someone was going to go into the backwoods up there, what would we find?
There's still a lot of snow in the north woods. The upper peninsula and the northern part of the lower peninsula has anywhere from 1 to 2.5 feet of snow.
And
It's
of course-
still very severe up there. Deer are still locked into the yards in most places,
Now, they're locked into the yards browsing off of what they can.
browsing whatever is available there. We have sent DNR tree cutting crews in many of these areas, several dozen such critical areas, to help provide food for the animals.
I guess it's sort of a day-by-day thing. The deer, when it thaws like that, can get out into the open, broaden their range, get the nutrition that they need, but now is a critical time, as I understand it. Every day that goes by that those deer are in the yards, they are deteriorating quickly.
They went into the yards about the first of the year, and it's been upwards of 90 days now. So it's a very long time. Some of the smaller ones, certainly their reserves are starting to run out.
Has there been much starvation to this point here on March 25th?
We've had scattered reports from most of the northern districts. It certainly is not of the extent it was back in 79, 78.
So what we need is for this weather to break and spring to be here for sure.
The sooner the better.
Okay, well, of course, going into the yards, the starvation that is found is primarily the young deer.
The deer that were
fawns of
born
last year.
last June, yes. We also have some losses from the very old animals, yes.
And, of course, there is a loss from this weather that nobody is going to see, of the ones that are going to be born this spring. Are there many stillbirths and that type of thing?
Well, we don't have a lot of losses. What happens usually is the fawns that are born just don't survive. Quite often, most usually they are born. We don't have resorption of the embryos.
And how long would it take for a fawn who comes from a doe in poor condition to die?
Well, quite often they die quite soon after birth. It's usually within the first 3 or 4 days.
And it's something that not many people see. And right now, here you see these deer lumbering through the snow, which is a critical problem right now. The crust formed on top of the snow, and deer who move that slowly are susceptible to lightweight dogs who can run on the top.
They're very vulnerable. They cannot move fast. Quite often, dogs and predators can move on top of the snow, and deer are very vulnerable at this time.
And actually, people think that, my little doggy, my pet dog, I mean, even you think maybe German Shepherds and the larger ones, but smaller dogs go after deer too, don't they?
Quite often, small beagles and very small dogs will pack up and cause a lot of problems.
Do they actually kill the deer?
Yes, they do. Yes.
Just like a pack of
It's hard to
wolves?
believe, but the small ones will too.
And then they'll come home at night and cuddle
Except
by
for
the
a little
fire.
blood maybe on the muzzle, you'd think they're just the same loving little dog that you've always had.
Now, conservation officers and policemen in the northern part of the state will shoot these dogs on sight if they are caught.
If they're chasing deer,
If they're
yes.
chasing deer, and also they can prosecute the owner.
I believe that's true.
That's, well, it is a serious problem right now. I guess all we can say is how well the deer do depends day by day on the weather.
Yes, we're hoping for an early breakup, and we think we still have a very large reservoir of bred does, and we should still have that herd snap back again this summer.
Well, we're going to hope for that good news. Thank you very much, Joe. Now we're going to get on to a couple of my good friends, the Richey brothers. Dave and George Richey.
Hi, Fred.
You guys, I tell you, I'm glad you have a goatee, George, so I can tell you two apart. These fellas, you've heard of Dave Richey's name over and over again, outdoor writer of the Detroit News, author of how many magazine articles?
Oh, over 5,000.
Wow, boy, that's a lot of tapping at the typewriter.
My fingers are all wore down.
I guess so, and you've written books. How many outdoor books?
14 books.
Hunting and fishing, nature, wildlife type books. That's, you guys are really something, but a lot of people, we want to get George some exposure here. You know, Dave,
Okay.
you're always taking the limelight. George being the handsome one anyway.
Thank you. I got the money, he's got the good looks.
Yeah. Well, George, you do, both of you were in the barbering business
Right,
for a long
right.
time. And you still hold down the fort up there in Honor?
Yep. I still have the barbershop in Honor, and I crank out a few flies on the side and
Working a little fishing, too.
work in a lot of fishing.
Well, you are a fly tyer. You wholesale flies, which is, I mean, you're in the business.
Right.
How many flies do you tie an hour?
Oh, conceivably, on easy patterns, well over a dozen an hour, you know.
And you have these for sale. Well, what are you working on right here?
This is Dave's favorite. This is a very effective steelhead pattern that I developed about 6-7 years ago, and it's been one of my better producers.
Yeah, I see. How long does it take you to tie that one?
Oh, about probably 4 minutes, approximately.
Of course, we'll look at some of your wares here. You've invented some lures. You have a Michigan rattle lure, you call it, and a sparkle fly. A number of steelhead flies you've invented.
And the Michigan squid.
Michigan squid, too. Also, let's look at this book here that you wrote, Dave, Great Lakes Steelhead Flies. This is not a book for really the general public, kind of a limited edition book.
Yeah, this is, it's a limited edition book. It's sold out as well, but I still have a few copies available. But it was designed primarily for the fly fishing steelhead.
And you have instructions here on how to tie the most
Yeah,
popular pattern?
there's tying instructions there, all the patterns, and there's about 20 color plates in there of different flies that George and other people have invented for steelhead fishing.
Quite an enterprising pair you are. Of course, your book, this is one of your famous books, Dave, Steelheading for Everybody. Steelheading is probably your favorite.
Well, I think so, because many years ago I guided for 10 years for steelhead, and a lot of my experience is in that particular book.
Of course, this one is sold out,
Yeah,
so
that
that's
one
sort of a
is-
collector's item right now.
That's right.
Still a few copies left, they tell me, of how to catch trophy freshwater game fish. Let's talk for a minute about trophy fishing, Dave. You've studied it. So, a species like northern pike, which is a popular one in the North Country here. What's the secret to catching a trophy northern?
Well, I think if I was going to go out after a trophy northern pike, I would do it right as soon as the season opens on May 15th. And I'd probably concentrate most of my efforts just off the mouths of rivers and streams where these fish would go up to spawn. And they usually come back down about the 15th of May from spawning, and they're usually hungry.
Without revealing anybody's secret spot, what are some of your favorite areas for northerns?
Well, I think that one of my favorite spots is Manistee Lake up at the town of Manistee. It's got a very fine population of big northern pike, and it's got smaller fish, and it's an excellent lake.
Ice fishermen seem to get the big ones oftentimes by spearing with pike and muskie. Is ice fishing a time of year to really get big fish or just a lot of fish?
Well, I would think that probably the best time to get a big northern pike if you're going to be ice fishing is right before the season closes at the end of February, because these fish are moving in to the area prior to spawning, and it's an excellent time. I've taken fish up to 20 pounds from Manistee Lake.
What about the lake trout we saw coming through the ice, or a Chinook here in the Great Lakes? Is trout and salmon fishing out in the Great Lakes, is that just luck, just running into them with your lures behind the downriggers?
No, I think the people that are most successful at catching lake trout and salmon consistently are those people that follow the schools of fish. They know exactly where these fish are at. They know how deep they are. They know what the water temperature preferences are, and they have learned through the use of downriggers to present their lures at the proper depth.
So what is it, in summary, that makes a trophy fisherman, whether it's a guy on a steelhead stream like we see here, or whatever species, does he spend a lot of hours at it? Does he have a lot of specialized equipment? Or is he just plain lucky?
Well, I think it's a combination of all those things, Fred. I think that luck certainly plays an important part, but I think a matter of knowing where to go and how to fish, and fishing at the proper time is the big key to fishing for trophy fish.
And what's the best way to learn? I know you're going to say buy a book.
Yeah, buy my book.
Buy a book and read your column in the Detroit News.
Right.
But just plain old experience?
I think experience is your best teacher, because you learn things by talking to other people. You learn their experiences, and they tell you what lures and what techniques are working. But experience is always your best teacher.
You recommend going out with guides, hiring guides, if you haven't done a certain type of fishing
Well,
before?
I think that a person that hires a guide, or a person that goes into an area for the first time, should hire a guide. The simple reason is a guide will shortcut some of the time that it takes to learn the techniques yourself.
Well, Dave, you're just a ton of advice here. Good, experienced advice from Dave Richey. And George, you're working on your finished... Oh, you started another fly.
Oh, I'm busy.
Oh, you got to make a buck here while you're
Well, try and make your honest dollar.
doing this program. Now, you aren't going to be at the Midwest Fly Fishing Exposition this week.
No, I just couldn't get a booth. I kind of dragged my feet a little bit, and I just didn't get down there. But my flies will be available at the Eppinger booth.
Okay, at the Eppinger booth, you'll see some of these hand-tied flies right here. Ed, come on in here. Give us a rundown on some of the events that are happening for sportsmen this weekend.
Okay, and coming up on everybody's screen will be
Quite a weekend for sportsmen. And you guys, you probably be out fishing.
No, I'm going
Dave?
to be there for one day.
Oh, are you? At the
Yes.
Fly Fishing Exposition?
Right.
Which day?
Right, Saturday.
Okay, come down and see Dave Richey. You won't be able to see the handsome one, George Richey.
Oh, he's heading north.
I know it, but right now we are going to find the best-looking Richey of all is in the kitchen. I can't wait to get there. And I tell you, Dave Richey has done a lot of good things in his life and a lot of accomplishments, but Kay, the best move of all had to be marrying you.
Oh, thank you, Fred.
Golly, I mean, you're a writer too. Look at this. You have talk about plugging books on this show by Kay Richey, edited Savor the Wild, Favorite Outdoor Recipes. And of course, you said you wanted to come down here and cook some venison cheeseburger pie.
Right?
Well, we have the venison. I have the venison burger right here in the frying pan cooking. And you made, let me see the instructions here. Preheat oven to 375. Okay, we got that taken care of. We're going to go through this real quick. And you have made dough.
Okay, I used a small package of like Bisquick. And about a cup of Bisquick and a half a cup of water, and you just stir that up and then kind of knead it a little bit and roll it out and put it in your pie dish.
Okay, now we're down here. It says put the fat in heavy skillet, electric fry pan, cook ground venison and onion. Now this onion you use
about 2 teaspoonsful.
of the dried minced onion. 2 teaspoons. There's 1 and 2. How am I doing so far?
Real good.
What do I put in next?
Okay, now just sprinkle that very liberally over the,
Seasoned pepper.
we want quite a bit of that. That's good stuff.
Okay.
Okay, and then the salt.
Now this is seasoning salt. Same, just sprinkle it over.
And we're going to need about tablespoonful of Worcestershire sauce.
Is that how you pronounce that?
That's how I pronounce it.
Worcestershire sauce. Okay. Go ahead. There's a
How do you pronounce it, Fred?
Worcestershire?
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
That sounds good, too.
That's sure. It all tastes the same no matter how you pronounce it. Okay, now we have
Okay, now while you're doing that, I'm going to get the cottage cheese and the eggs. I have beaten 2 eggs, and I'm going to add a cup of cottage cheese. I like the small cream cottage cheese.
So we have the venison, the seasoned salt, the seasoned pepper, the minced onions, Worcestershire sauce here in this pan. And we have a regular pie crust, cottage cheese, and eggs. That's almost all the ingredients. So what do? I scoop this in there?
Okay, you can scoop it in here.
Okay, here we'll move this so we can see what we're doing. Oh, this is looking good. This certainly is different.
Smells good.
This venison, what type of fat do you have mixed in with it?
Well, this one was kind of a mistake. I don't normally like anything that's mixed in with mine, and I think that has just a little bit of beef suet.
Okay. What you're going to do is, slice some tomatoes and put on top with, you have some cheese?
Okay, would you like to pour that
I'll
over
pour
it
this on.
evenly?
Okay. So we put this on top. I'll tell you what, Kay, finish this off. We're going to pull one out of the oven in just a minute here.
Okay.
Let's take a little break for our trophy report.
Okay.
And speaking of venison, here's 232 pounds field dressed, an 8-point buck that beat Champ Noise from Dorr took in Allegan County. It's his 7th buck in 9 years of bow hunting. It's his first one, though, to make Pope and Young record book at 137 5/8. And here's a handful of meat in the fish world, nearly 36 pounds of Chinook salmon that Larry Mulch from Dowagiac caught on a Northport nailer off Berrien County. That's a great picture. I'm not trying to do a plug for any particular lure, but it just so happens that Jerry Thomas from Bay City and Bill Garrett of Kalamazoo were also trolling Northport nailers off Manistee when they caught a pair of Chinook. Jerry's filleted out into some nice pieces of meat that turned into 10 quarts of canned salmon, but before he cut it up, he did register it as a master angler fish, all 37 pounds, 4 ounces. That's the 3rd largest Chinook taken in 1981. A few more months and we'll be catching fish this size again. If you get a master angler size fish of any species, give us a call before you cut up that fish. We might ask you to bring it down on the show, or at least send the DNR a good photo, because we might be able to include you in our weekly trophy report. Okay, and here I am putting the last of the cheese, and this goes in the oven for 30 minutes, it says. And you are cutting the finished venison cheeseburger pie. Why don't you serve that up on a plate so I can taste it? I'll just do another little promo here for your book, Savor the Wild, Favorite Recipes of Outdoor Writers, edited by Kay Richey. Okay, this is really great. This looks good. Oh, what do you serve this with? A salad?
Just a salad. I don't even really care to have another vegetable with it, just a nice spinach salad.
That is really good. Very tasty. I think the crew is going to climb all over us here to finish this off real quick. So all in all, this weekend, well, if you're a steelhead fisherman, you got to watch and make sure that water goes down. Smelting is just a couple weeks away, too. We'll be reporting on that. Hope you enjoyed this fast-paced Michigan Outdoor Show. We'll see you next week.
Funding for the preceding program was made possible in part by a grant from Farm Bureau Insurance Group and its agents throughout Michigan.
Rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. Sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan.